You know that moment when you open your banking app and instead of bracing yourself for disappointment, you actually feel calm? Not excited, not rich, just calm. Like when an unexpected bill shows up and instead of your stomach dropping, you simply think, all right, I'll handle it. For most people, that moment doesn't happen when they become millionaires. It doesn't even happen when they hit six figures. It happens much earlier. There's a strange financial milestone that almost nobody talks about, but once you reach it, your entire relationship with money changes. That number is $20,000, not $100,000, not $1,000,000, just $20,000. Now that might sound small in the world of finance, but psychologically and mathematically, it's one of the most powerful turning points in your financial life. Because once you cross it, everything starts to work differently. Building wealth isn't a straight line. It's more like climbing a steep hill while pushing a heavy boulder. At the beginning, every step feels exhausting. You're putting in effort but barely making progress. Saving your first few $1,000s can take months or even years, and every time you start gaining momentum, something seems to knock you backwards. Your car needs repairs. Your laptop stops working. Rent increases. A random expense wipes out half your savings. It feels like you're constantly restarting the climb. That's because when you have very little money saved, every dollar carries enormous weight. Losing $300 when you only have $1,000 saved feels devastating, but losing $300 when you have $20,000 saved barely registers. That's the first shift that happens around this number. Small setbacks stop feeling catastrophic and start feeling manageable, and that difference alone changes how you move through life. But the deeper change happens in your mind. When people have little or no savings, their brain operates in what psychologists call survival mode. Every financial decision carries pressure. You're constantly thinking about whether you can afford something, calculating how long your money will last, and worrying about what happens if something goes wrong. This constant stress quietly drains mental energy. Behavioral economists have found that financial stress reduces cognitive bandwidth, meaning your brain literally has less capacity to think clearly and plan long term. When you're worried about survival, you naturally focus on short-term problems. It's like trying to plan a vacation while your house is on fire. Your brain simply can't prioritize long-term thinking when immediate threats are present. But once you build a financial cushion, something interesting happens. When people have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved, which for many people lands somewhere around $20,000, their stress levels drop dramatically. Not because they're rich, but because they feel safe. They're no longer one bad week away from disaster. That breathing room allows your brain to shift from reacting to planning. Instead of asking, how do I make it to the next paycheck? You begin asking, how can I grow this money? That mental shift might sound subtle, but it changes everything. It's the moment when financial survival turns into financial strategy. Another powerful change happens when you reach $20,000 in savings. Your confidence around money increases dramatically. Not because the number itself is enormous, but because of what it represents. Saving $20,000 requires discipline, consistency, and patience. You didn't stumble into it by accident. You built it slowly over time. That means you proved something important to yourself. You can control your money, and once you realize that, your identity begins to change. You stop thinking like someone who is constantly struggling financially and start thinking like someone who is capable of building wealth. That shift affects every financial decision you make going forward. Before reaching this milestone, buying something small like a coffee or ordering takeout might trigger guilt or hesitation. You find yourself doing mental math before every purchase. But once you've built a financial foundation, you stop sweating the small stuff. You know that the bigger picture matters more. Instead of obsessing over every $5 purchase, you start focusing on the big financial decisions that actually shape your future. Where you live, how much you invest, how your income grows, and how your spending aligns with your long-term goals. But psychology is only half the story. The other half is math. Because once you reach $20,000, your money finally becomes large enough to start doing meaningful work for you. Imagine investing $1,000 and earning an 8% return over a year. You would make about $80. That's nice. But it doesn't feel like anything significant. Now imagine investing $20,000 at the same return. Suddenly you're earning $1,600 per year. That's real money, and you didn't have to work extra hours to earn it. Your money generated it on its own. This is where compound growth starts becoming noticeable. Your investments begin generating returns, and those returns begin generating their own returns. Over time, the effect builds momentum. In the early stages, the growth feels slow, almost invisible. But as your balance increases, the snowball effect becomes stronger. Eventually, your money begins doing more of the work than your monthly contributions. That's when wealth building starts to feel less like pushing a boulder uphill and more like guiding something that already has momentum. There's another reason money tends to flow toward people who already have it, and it has nothing to do with luck. It has to do with opportunity. When you're broke, opportunities exist all around you, but you can't take advantage of them. Maybe a friend mentions a business idea that requires a small investment. Maybe there's a course that could improve your career. Maybe there's a market opportunity that requires some capital. But if you're struggling financially, the answer is always the same. I can't afford it. When you have savings, that answer changes. You can evaluate opportunities instead of automatically rejecting them. You can invest in your skills. You can take calculated risks that might increase your income later. Money doesn't just buy things, it buys options. And options create leverage. When you have financial flexibility, you can position yourself to benefit from opportunities that others simply can't take. That advantage compounds over time. Your relationship with work also changes once you reach this milestone. When you're living paycheck to paycheck, your job controls you. You might tolerate bad management, stressful conditions, or unfair workloads, because losing that paycheck would immediately cause financial problems. That reality puts you in a weak negotiating position. You hesitate to ask for raises. You avoid pushing back on unreasonable demands. You feel trapped because your survival depends on that job continuing exactly as it is. But once you have a financial cushion, the power dynamic changes. You now have what many people call walking away money. You don't have to stay in a situation that's harming your mental health or limiting your growth. That doesn't mean you quit recklessly, but it means you're no longer negotiating from desperation. And interestingly, that confidence often improves your career prospects. People who feel financially secure tend to take more initiative, ask for better opportunities, and pursue higher paying roles. Over time, those decisions can dramatically increase income, which accelerates the wealth building process even further. Another surprising shift happens around this point. You begin to care less about tiny financial decisions and more about major ones. Before building savings, people often spend a lot of mental energy worrying about small purchases. Should you buy the cheaper brand at the grocery store? Should you skip coffee to save a few dollars? Should you wait before buying something small? These questions dominate your thinking because every dollar feels critical. But once you build a financial foundation, you realize something important. Small decisions rarely determine your financial future. What actually matters are the big financial choices. The difference between paying $800 or $1,200 in rent each month can add up to tens of thousands of dollars over time. The difference between saving 5% of your income and saving 20% can change your financial future completely. The difference between investing consistently and not investing at all can determine whether you retire comfortably or struggle later in life. Once you reach your first major savings milestone, you start seeing money through that wider lens. However, many people make a mistake right after reaching $20,000. They celebrate by spending it. They upgrade their car, book an expensive vacation, or buy something they have been dreaming about for years. It feels deserved because saving that much money required discipline and sacrifice. But that money isn't just a reward. It's the foundation of your financial future. It's the base layer of the wealth building process. Without it, your financial engine can't run. The people who successfully build wealth treat that first pile of money differently. They protect it. They invest it. They allow it to grow quietly in the background. Once that foundation exists, something remarkable begins to happen. Your second $20,000 usually arrives faster than the first. That's because two forces are now working together, your savings and your investments. Every dollar you add increases the size of the snowball, and the snowball itself is already rolling. Over time, that momentum accelerates. At first, the progress feels slow, then it becomes noticeable, and eventually it becomes powerful. Many people are surprised by how quickly things can change once they've built the initial base. $20,000 won't make you rich overnight. It won't buy luxury cars, mansions, or private jets, but it does something far more important. It changes your trajectory. It moves you from financial instability to financial stability. It transforms money from a constant source of stress into a tool you can use intentionally. And once that shift happens, the path toward real wealth becomes much clearer. So if you're still climbing toward that first milestone, don't underestimate it. It might seem small compared to the numbers you hear about in finance headlines, but it represents something powerful. It represents control, momentum, and possibility. It's the point where you stop feeling like money controls your life and start realizing that you can control it instead. And once that realization takes hold, everything about how you approach money begins to change. Because after $20,000, everything starts to work differently.